All right. We are going to start the regular scheduled council meeting of September 22nd, 2020 of the Elgin City Council regular meeting to order at 7 p.m. And we'll start with the roll call. Councilmember Dennis.
Dennis here.
Cannon here.
Vega here.
Jones here.
Madam Secretary, I certify that we have a quorum. Please let the record reflect that council members Brazier and Lopez are absent. We've heard from Sue, and Daniel was a maybe tonight. Do I hear a motion to excuse the two members as that are absent?
So moved.
Got a motion by Councilmember Pinson and a second by Councilmember Gonzalez. I'll call for a vote. Mary?
Benson, yes. Vega, yes.
Yes.
Arriaga, yes.
Cannon, yes. Please let the record reflect that both members have been excused. And that'll move us to the invocation. Ms. Pinson, would you like to give us the invocation? Oh, yeah, we do. Actually, Pastor Green, would you like to lead us in our invocation tonight? You can do it from there or the mic over there, whatever you prefer.
Already fixed it in Jesus' name. I pray, amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. If you will stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The Texas flag. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you. All right, so we have a lot of public comments tonight, and we've got some. We started during the pandemic. We started doing public comment a little bit different. We will now offer people the opportunity to fill out something, send it to the city secretary, and have that read over the record. And that's what I'm going to start with. We also had several individuals send the same thing, same statement, and I believe we checked with all of them individually, and they were all okay with us reading that statement one time and then calling their name. So I'm going to read the statement that was sent by 21 different people, and then I'll read each individual after I read the statement. To be read under public comment, I support the concerned citizens of Elgin and respectfully request the City Council vote yes for an external independent investigation of Chief of Police Patrick South and City Manager Tom Mattis. That's the end of the statement. That was sent by, and forgive me if I get these names, pronounce these names wrong, but Tiffany Wall, Cindy Graham, Jennifer Gerloff, Mary Lee Murphy, Ryan Simpson, Ashley Phillips, Christian Brett-Fellion, Lisa Hillestad, Nancy Smith, Tommy Williams, George Parsons, Alvina Thompson, Ronnie Hardy, Vivian Lipke, Cynthia Burton, Arletta White, Kurt Simmons, Zach Chandler, Brad Birchfield, Matthew Callahan, and Ariel Weaver. Okay. Next citizen comment is Good morning, Ms. Sanchez. Below is a comment I would like to have read on my behalf for tomorrow's city council meeting. My name is D. Holman, and I am a member of the Concerned Citizens of Elgin, CCOE. I respectfully request that the city council vote yes in favor of an independent external investigation into any improper actions of Chief of Police Patrick South and any efforts to conceal these actions by City Manager Tom Mattis. For the record, I do not know either of these men personally, therefore this is not in the interest of a personal vendetta or a witch hunt. My concerns stem solely from information gathered from PIR requests. This information, without any commentary, direction, or opinion from another person, has troubled me greatly. I feel that there has been more than enough evidence from these documents to support a claim of unethical behavior from the chief in our police department. It is imperative that each citizen in our city feel comfortable with those in charge of protecting and serving us. As it stands, I personally cannot say that I currently have that confidence. Please take action to delve into and uncover any impropriety in order to restore public confidence in our police department. Signed, D. Holman. The next one is Ms. Sanchez. I want to express my concern to the City Council over the PIR request I have received and the information contained in the audios and videos I have watched on Facebook. It is clear to me that there is something seriously amiss with the way Chief Patrick South has been running his department. City Manager Tom Mattis is either covering up for South or he is absolutely clueless to what is going on in department under his control, either of which are serious problems for the person in control of the city finances. Which brings to another concern of mine. After reading Linda Minchin's letter to the editor in the Elgin Courier last week, I too want to voice my concerns on who asked City Manager Tom Addis and the City Council to grow Elgin exponentially by courting large residential developments. The city does not have the infrastructure to support this growth. Where are the businesses needed to support the number of people coming to Elgin? Where are the restaurants, big box stores, schools, recreation, and parks needed to support the thousands and thousands of new homes you are bringing to Elgin? The growth is clearly going to raise taxes because there isn't the business growth to help offset personal taxes. The City Council needs to answer for Tom Mattis and their support of turning our small town into a city growing out of control. Sincerely, Richard Lewis. Next one is good afternoon, Ms. Sanchez. I would like to have this statement read at tomorrow's City Council meeting. My name is Lisa Fuller. I am a concerned citizen of Elgin. I believe there is more than ample evidence to justify an independent external investigation into the actions of Elgin's police chief and our city manager. I am also the president of the Elgin Police Academy Alumni Association and have been an avid supporter and advocate of Elgin Police Department along with being hands-on in many projects. In my opinion, my first-hand observation of misconduct, dishonor, and disrespect leads me to believe this investigation is vital to the integrity of law enforcement and will shape the future of the city of Elgin. The leaders of our city should be held to the standards they hold the citizens to. The claim in their mission statement, justice, accountability, integrity. I implore you to do what is right, not what is easy. Please vote yes to expedite this investigation and end all speculation. Let the evidence speak for itself. Sincerely, Lisa Fuller. Next and final one of send-in is city council members. There are so many red flags that have been brought up through public information requests. You as the elected officials of the city of Elgin should be very concerned. This is not personal. Just one of these concerns is about the liability of the chief of police driving recklessly at extreme rates of speed, which is supposed to be reserved for peace officers rushing to aid someone in grave danger. Driving at those rates of speed and recklessness on personal business in a city vehicle violates every City of Elgin personnel vehicle policy. Why is Chief South still driving a city vehicle? Did you not just ask the city marshal to resign due to improper use of a City of Elgin vehicle? Why is City Manager Tom Mattis covering up this incident and the many HR complaints filed by former and current EPD officers? Again, this isn't personal. It is the job of the City Council to listen to citizens and make informed decisions based on facts, not feeling. I am respectfully asking y'all to vote yes to an independent informal investigation based on the formal complaint filed here tonight. Sincerely, David Lipke. Okay. So now, taking these in the order that I received, I believe we have, feels like about 10 here. You'll still hear me okay? Okay. And as I call your name, if you will approach the dais and state your name and address for the record. The first is Selena Mangus? Yes, ma'am. Yeah, yes, you can take it off at the dais. If you'll just state your name and address, please. There you go. There you go.
Selena Mangus, 13560 Sky Boulevard. Council. Start this. Is a good. These posts on, these posts on the internet and social media are one-sided. I consider myself an honest person, and nobody is perfect. They are putting things into light that are biased, one-sided, and lack complete information. People are basing things as fact with no real research into the police department. I urge you to look at then and now. The police department's reputation has grown substantially. Our conviction rate has increased, and we now get true bills at over 90%. Sex crimes, family crimes, and other violent crimes are handled professionally and with respect for the victims and their families, where they were not in the past. I urge you to look into all the details, not the ones thrown out on social media. They are being coerced and manipulated by former employees with a vendetta because their immoral and unprofessional and unscrupulous acts were brought to light. Former employees that I would like to stress do not have their information posted on social media because they know the harm they can do with their chances of employment elsewhere. My concern is that the people see these things on social media and feed into them without realizing that they do not know the flip side of the coin. As a citizen of this town, I trust the PD with the chief's guidance has improved substantially. I also caution the council that the posts that Ms. Lipke are putting out there do not include all the facts. Thank you.
Thank you. I didn't state before she started talking, but we try to keep these to about 3 minutes. Start a timer. I'm pretty good about letting you finish your comment, finishing up your point at the end, but we've got to keep it moving, and so we do time them at 3 minutes, but I'm pretty good about letting you finish your point if you're getting close to wrapping up by then. Mr. Brian McKinney, please approach the dais and state your name and address for the record.
Yeah, I'm Brian McKinney. I live at 406. Been here for 7 years. And Chris, I got this down to about 3 minutes.
All right,
Spare me.
no problem.
This past June, I saw an online post inviting concerned citizens to a meeting about the department. During the meeting, the organizers explained that many well-respected members of the department had been fired or forced to resign under duress for reasons that seemed suspect to the alumni of the CPA, who I consider to be highly credible given their close association. At the meeting, I learned that Assistant Chief Philip Taylor had been surreptitiously fired after many years of service, and that other long-serving officers had filed complaints recounting a toxic work environment characterized by intimidation, retribution, favoritism, and management policy violations by the chief. Now, nobody likes a bully, least of all two of them, and a red flag to me was the fact that the officer replacing A.C. Taylor had been forced to resign from a previous position at another police department for harassment, a behavior that seems to have continued unabated here in Elgin. To add insult to injury, I also learned that Chief South had fired Siva, the canine officer, and in violation of statutes, removed her from the trainership and given her to another officer. It's not for me to decide if this is right or wrong or legal, but it sure was mean-spirited, I have to say that. I followed the release of many, but not all, of the open records documents that came to light after launching the I helped write the petition, and from what I can tell, the demands listed in it. In my opinion, any investigation needs to be fair and even-handed and conducted by an unbiased third party for the good of the work environment at the EPD, the morale of our officers, and the benefit of our community. In closing, I'd like to call attention to the third and fourth items on the petitions, which seem to have kind of been ignored so far. Both have merit and should be given the consideration they deserve. Item 3 asks that the city require the EPD to maintain and update a personnel roster on the city's website to include each officer's name, rank, hire date, work history, and badge number, along with a current photograph. Our citizens deserve to know about the work histories of those. From an accountability perspective, I think citizens would eagerly embrace an online interface that would allow them to rate the performance of officers when they encounter them, using a 5-star review system, rated if somebody goes off the rails. Item 4 asks the city to establish a Citizens Police Advisory Board to work with the EPD to address concerns, share ideas, and submit suggestions that would strengthen the bonds between the community and our officers, whom I'm sure are going to be brand new, given the ones we've lost. Thanks for listening. Thanks to all the CCOE volunteers for their dedication to our city and our police department, and thanks to our rank and file officers, service that they provide. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next is Mr. Randy Starr. If you will approach the dais and state your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, I'm Randy Starr. I own a business here in Elgin, and my address is 106 Terra. Well, what's funny is I don't know if it's Drive or Trail, but it's on Terra Drive. I just wanted to say a few things. I got in on this group to look at these videos and things to see what I thought was going on. As some of y'all know, I spent a lot of time at the PD back when Bratton was here riding out. Saw some things that I really don't care to repeat, but my whole point is this. Over the years, the last 3 years, I've seen some changes. Each officer that has left this department, whether they were fired, decided to quit, or whatever the reason was, and I haven't looked into all of it, were extremely good officers. I'm the first to admit it. I've ridden probably with every one of them. The thing is, I think this whole thing boils down to one main thing. When you're a new manager in town, whether it's a chief, a manager of a pest control office or whatever, and you want to make changes, you're going to have people that agree, and you're going to have people that disagree. I run into it daily at my own office. The problem is people have got to either decide to stay and go with the change or not. Having an independent investigation, I'm all for if wrongdoing is proven to be done or it really seems very high. The only problem I have with all these videos that I'm seeing, and I have nothing against any individual in them, and the officers that have left, I eat with them, I'll go and have a drink with them. I mean, it's no big deal. My problem is it takes a lot of money for an independent investigation. If there is wrongdoing and there gets shown that there really is, great, it may be necessary. I don't want my tax dollars in this city being blown for something that may not be necessary. I then went and took an extra step and went and decided to meet with the chief myself. He and I have some disagreements on things. We agree to disagree. He's never tried to hide anything from me. Obviously, some things he can't discuss because it's of an investigation, which I understand that. My point is this. When we have change, this city's growing whether y'all like it, I like it. We have to accept it. With growth comes change. Changes that some don't like, some do like. These videos that I'm looking at and comments are almost like watching a video on, look what this police officer or what this person did to somebody. And they show this much of it. I'd like to know what happened to the prior. Did these officers deserve to be fired? I wasn't there, I don't know. Did they put up a fight against the change? I can speculate, but I don't know. Those are the questions that we need answered. If that's the case, fine, I can understand their points. But the problem is you can't have a one-sided deal to make a decision. And I don't have the other side's answers. I do know that when I went to PD, one of the biggest fights, and I've talked to several of y'all in the past about, is we need more officers. We've got them. We needed patrol units that could make it to a call. We finally got those. We've got equipment. And I mean, that's basically all that I had to say. I just think that we need to weigh it out and really look at it before we go and spend a fortune doing something that may not be necessary. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, next is Mr. Chris Wall. Is he here, outside maybe? Good evening. If you just approach the dais and state your name for the record. Oh, you got something to hand us?
Yes, I do.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
I have two packets. One is what I'm going to speak about tonight, if you want to follow along. How would I give these to the council members that are not?
You can lay it in their place and we'll get it to them.
You want me to just hand those out? You can start. You can go ahead and get started.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Chris Wall, and I'm a former patrol sergeant with the City of Elgin Police Department. Over the past several months, there's been speculation on what goes on behind closed doors at the police department. There's a lot of he said, she said, and tons of rumors and social media posts. I'd like to offer you my personal experiences on what I've observed and been involved in. Of course, I can't cover everything in 3 minutes, so I'm going to be here over the next several months to give you an insight of what is actually taking place. My first thought was to give you my personal experience of how I was physically threatened, belittled, and at one time even directed to change an internal affairs investigation report that supported the chief's personal agenda and not the truth of the investigation. However, I'd like to take this time to speak about something more important than me. You see, after I submitted my formal complaint on the Chief of Police, Patrick South, via my attorney, we were set to have a meeting with the City Manager, Tom Mattis. The meeting was set for June 26, 2020 at City Hall. When my attorney and I arrived, we met with Mr. Mattis and Ms. Sanders in the council chambers to discuss my complaint. During the conversation, after describing what had taken place during the incident between the chief and I, Mr. Mattis asked me what I wanted him to do with the chief in reference to making this right. He asked, "Do you want me to just fire the chief? Is that what you're after?" I replied, "No, I don't think you need to fire the chief. I think he needs help." I then went on to explain the signs of distress that I have noticed the Chief South had been displaying over the past year. I explained the gradual outward tantrums and displays of anger that he has shown were getting to be more frequent. I also explained that the bullying from him was not limited to just the police department, and that I was aware of bullying incident between him and the HR director, Ms. Sanders. I was told this by Commander Noble that the chief was not allowed in Ms. Sanders' office without an escort because of his aggressive manner towards her. I advised Mr. Mattis that Chief South possibly needed some psychological help, as he has not been the same since the passing of his wife. Mr. Mattis asked me if I was in the position to make such a recommendation, and I said yes. As a 20-year police officer, I have training and extensive personal on-the-job experience with identifying signs of mental distress, mental illness, depression, and other indicators signaling a lack of healthy mental well-being. In my 2.5 years here alone at the Elgin Police Department, I've been directly involved with several emergency detention orders. An order of this kind is an action taken by a police officer when he has cause to believe a person must be immediately restrained because he or she exhibits behavior that is a current threat to their life or others. They must be detained in a mental health facility and examined by a physician within 48 hours. Now, this example is extreme. However, I have the training and experience to see different levels of distress and what steps need to be taken to help those who are having difficulty. Some signs of distress that I have personally seen from Chief South are gradual aggression behavior and posture towards employees, overreacting to minor inconveniences, blaming others for his mistakes, coming in late for work or not coming in at all, noticeable trembling in his hands that he did not have before, and forgetting details and incidents and lying to cover up inconsistent behavior as seen on one of my videos.
Chris, that's 3 minutes, but I'll give you 30 more seconds.
I appreciate it. I'm almost done. And many other indicators. So I'm not a disgruntled employee. I wanted Mr. Mattis to get Chief South help, and I'm quite sure based on how this administration has handled themselves over the past few months, this has not happened. I urge the council and the mayor to look closer into getting this man help he desperately needs. If you need any further information, I'd be more than happy to speak with anyone here, and I left my contact information at the bottom. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm very sorry if I messed this name up. It's, I can't really read the handwriting, but I think it's Lisa Hillstad? Yes, ma'am. If you'll approach the dais, you're welcome to take off your mask at the dais. And if you'll just state your name and address for the record, please.
Lisa Hillstead, 102 Vicksburg Cove.
I'm going to set the timer, in case you didn't hear me out there. I'm going to set it for 3 minutes, but I'll let you wrap your point up if you haven't quite got it in by then.
Okay. So good evening to everyone. I appreciate you taking the time to hear me. I would like to take this opportunity to address my perspective on the topic being discussed here. Chief Taylor was an incredible leader within our community. For 15.5 years, who was focused on a proactive, community-oriented approach when dealing with matters concerning everyone here in Elgin. Chief Taylor played an active part in corresponding with our community and addressing issues and challenges that we have all faced here. No matter the time or day, the issue at hand, Chief Taylor was always available to address our concerns and would follow through with the promises that he made. It was obvious that he cared about the community, even though his address is in Manor, Texas. As a resident of the city of Elgin, I feel that he was betrayed by this city that he loved so much. The current chief, not only does he not live here in Elgin, he is also lacking in his support and concern for the citizens of Elgin. But what has been brought to light is that he lacks concern for any citizen in any community. This is evident in the alleged speeding incident reported by 2 counties via the audio, where the current chief is driving in excess of 100 miles per hour in a city vehicle, which a marshal was fired per city manager Mattis for driving a city vehicle in his personal time, in a thunderstorm, putting countless lives at risk. The practices of Chief South, which have come to light in recent documents and videos, that does not represent the feelings and perspective of myself or many residents here in Elgin. By voicing my position this evening, I am asking that the city council do what is right, facilitating an investigation to the ethical and professional practices of Chief South, his current administration, and the city manager, Tom Mattis, for allowing total disregard to go unnoticed.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. And another thing I usually say during citizen comments is we're not able to respond. This is the citizens' time to talk to us, so we can't engage in a conversation back and forth for several reasons, but that's never to be confused with that. We don't care, we're not listening, we just cannot respond. So, next, Stephanie Lipke. We have four more. If you'd like, you could give them all to her and she could pass them out while you talk. Or Tom. Whoever. Counsel, you want them now, or you? I don't think we can really read them at the moment.
Yeah, it's
while we're
pretty,
listening,
it's
but
pretty intense.
Is there
if y'all
anything to
are gonna
reference
spend
to
some-
while you're talking? Would you like us to be able to reference to something while you're talking to
No,
this?
that's
Okay.
fine. This is for y'all's information
Okay.
to
If you
read
state
and to
your
go
name
over.
and
I'm
address.
Stephanie Lipke, and I live at 112 North Main.
And again, Stephanie, I'm going to give you 3 minutes, and then if you hadn't quite got it up, giving everybody 3 minutes. So if you hadn't quite got your point out, I'll give you 30 seconds or so to
Okay.
wrap it up.
No, it's pretty quick. This is our formal complaint against Chief Patrick South and City Manager Thomas Mattis. These are the Elgin Police Department regulations and the City of Elgin Personnel Policy pre-updated July 1, 2020. Violations committed by Chief Patrick South and City Manager Thomas Mattis. The documents contained in this complaint support non-compliance with the City of Elgin and Elgin PD regulations. These documents also bring to light corruption, loss of public integrity, and complete lack of institutional oversight on the part of City Manager Thomas Mattis. Patrick South's violations of the Elgin PD regulations expose severe problems with South's command and stability of the Elgin Police Department. Patrick South has allegedly stolen time from the city, allegedly transferred retired Officer Siva K-9 in violation of Texas Government Code, allegedly initiated an IA investigation against Texas Government Code and Elgin citizen complaint process, allegedly forced changes of an internal affairs investigative documents, acquired complaints from 2 separate law enforcement agencies for his reckless driving, endangering the lives of the Robertson County citizens, speeding in excess of 100 miles per hour with emergency lights while in his police show Chief South was not on vacation or sick leave at that time. These are just the highlights of what's included in the following complaint. The concerned citizens of Elgin are respectfully requesting the City Council obtain an external investigation by either the Texas Rangers or an independent agency that is specialized in government corruption investigations. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Stephen Ward. I think I have that right. Stephen Ward? Stephen Ward. Sorry. I should have said that a few more times that I known who you were.
I think you know who I am.
Yeah, sorry.
Stephen Ward.
Yes, sir.
71 South Main
Absolutely.
Street, Elgin, Texas. I
Sorry.
pastor here in Elgin. So one of the challenges to a growing city is adjustment. And whether it's infrastructure or whatever it may be. When I first heard of Chief South, I did a little digging to figure out who he is, because I didn't really know. Once I got to the place where I understood him a little bit more, I started meeting with him one-on-one and started talking to him. The challenges that I hear people have with him seem to be related to the fact of a new organizational structure, his practices, how he handles his policies, and how he conducts his police department. A lot of the complaints that I hear from the officers, or prior officers, shall I say, seem to be, again, policy things that he seems to work on. I have friends that are chiefs of police, and some of them work underneath the police departments. So I ask them questions about theirs, and they're quick to tell me you can't judge mine by his. But one of the things that I found is that he's very consistent with the policies that's being instituted all throughout cities that are growing in Texas. Some of the complaints seem more personal. If I can be blunt with y'all, some of it seemed like a witch hunt. And I understand that we want to go back to some semblance of old Elgin. I've been here for 48 years of my life, and there's this feeling that we want that back. And pastoring in Elgin, with the rate that it's growing, watching people come into the city, Elgin is never going back to what it used to be, ever. And if we don't modernize what we're doing for our police department, we're going to be in trouble. We finally have a police department that's basically fully staffed. How long has that been? We've been looking for people. We've got the structure that we need. We have the person leading us that we need to get where we're going. Now, should anybody be able to do anything without nobody looking in on them? No. No one should be able to do that. But should we just question them because we don't care for the fact that they fired somebody? That's not right either. I think we need to take a step back and really look at the work, I'm almost done, at the work that he's doing and judge him on the work, not on our, mostly unfounded concerns. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next is Mr. Greg Long. Greg Long.
May I pull this down for just a
Yes,
bit?
sir. Yeah, I'm sorry. I
So
told
that my
everybody else
glasses
that.
don't fog up? I'm sorry.
Absolutely. You can take the mask off, and
all
sorry
right.
you weren't inside, but everybody's got 3 minutes. If you can't wrap it up in 3 minutes, I'll give you another 30 seconds. And if you'll state your name and address for the record.
Sure, I'm Greg Long. 696, community here. 2 successful corporate coach. One of the largest educational publishers in the world. Life coach in Christian ministry. I've been in authority. I've been under authority in those 2 careers, so I understand the challenges of making difficult decisions and managing responsibilities with as communities. I wanted to thank you, first of all, for your service to our community. In my time, I reported to 2 boards. Immoral or unethical action. The promise their full support. If you take action that is illegal, immoral, or unethical, then it will be our responsibility to hold you accountable in the position of your leadership. And as citizens, and I come as a citizen today, we can give you feedback encounters that we've had with city servants, but we recognize, and I know you do, it's your responsibility to select, supervise, and manage policies for those who serve. I just want to say a word about Chief South. I met him just after he came to Elgin. I stood with him as we honored and celebrated the life of one of our most beloved officers, Bill Silva, for his funeral service, actually, at our church. I've helped and been helped by him through many encouraging encounters as I've served in the community. I've sought his counsel, and as he sought mine in his community challenges, desires to see Elgin become a place, a community that's unified. I've always experienced the passion and the desire to see Elgin come together and to build on our rich history and to write a new chapter. And I've found him firm and fair. He even gave the preacher tickets when he needed to, and yes, I did pay the fines. The only conflicts I've had with him were not of his making. They were of mine. Has the chief made decisions that have been unpopular? I suspect if he's doing his job, he has. I learned years ago officiating high school basketball that as an official, you're wrong 100% of the time. If your goal is to please the coaches and the crowd, making unpopular decisions doesn't mean they're wrong. Only those closest to the decisions know every situation. In my experience, we will hear, and you have heard from others here who maybe have seen things differently, but I would offer you just two things. One, that you should take the responsibility to do the things that you've been asked to do and gather the information that you have to gather. And what I might ask of you is to offer them another suggestion, and I'll be through. We have outstanding officers and leaders. They all operate under enormous stress and adversity. We can't begin to imagine. I would encourage you as city officials to set aside some funds to hire a trained personal coach to work with the leaders in the department and officers in the field. While it may cost the city some money, it will save the city more than it would spend. Better morale, replacing staff, greater communication, helping our leaders, and more productive department. The ability to learn and listen and lead would get better. I don't know if we could coach. If you are interested in one, I'd be glad. Thank you very much
Thank
for
you,
your
sir.
time.
Thank you. All right. Has anybody signed up since we've started talking? No, ma'am. Okay. Would anybody else, we got to our final speaker, would anybody else like to address the council? Would you do a last call outside to anybody?
Check.
Okay. All right, then, Pastor Byron Green. If you will approach and give us your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Byron Green. I live at 18732 Golden Eagle Way here in Elgin. Real briefly, I was disturbed how people can readily tear down and discredit and someone who is new to the city. And yes, decisions have been made that are not pleasing to a whole lot of people. And I'm almost 100% sure that since Chief South been here, every decision, he even had to think about some of them. But does that give us the right to come in after providing a man with a living? My father always said, if a man wants to work, let him work. Because if he don't work, then that means our tax dollars will take care of him and his family. And so I'm a firm believer of a man working. I've been dealing with the police department here in Elgin for 22 years. Good moments and bad. But for 22 years, I've never had a chief to call me and say, let's sit down and let's look at the practices and policies and procedures of the police department so that we can make it better for all, not one. And some of them have been some close friends of mine, but not a one have ever decided to let's look at this and let's create a board, citizens review panel. And he called on some people to come in and let's go over these policies, practices, and procedures so that we can make it better for all. I've knocked on doors and asked people to sit on the board to represent their particular races. We've got the board staff. And so I think that strides are being made. And then I read these posts and I look at these videos. And one post really disturbed me because the very people that's trying to tear him down wants to bring Phil Taylor back. And I don't have an issue with Phil. I didn't have an issue with Phil Taylor until the other day. See, if you're not careful, the real you will show up. And the real Phil Taylor showed up. The racism that he spewed on Facebook and then posted it. And if a black man's life don't matter, why do you want to be over a black man? And I'm here to tell you that when you have the wrong idea of what Black Lives Matter mean, then you are going to go down a road that's totally wrong. Because we're not saying that nobody else's lives matter, but I guarantee you that if any of you that is sitting on this dais is in this room that is not black, your child have a 90% chance of making it home after a traffic stop, whereas a black man don't have a chance in hell. On a simple traffic stop, family has to bury him. That's what matters to us. And so when you have somebody, and I'm done, when you have somebody that will come in and try to make it right for all, yes, you're going to have people out to which are, yes, you're going to have people out that is not pleased with the efforts that he's put forth. But I stand before you today to let you know I'm pleased with the efforts that he's at least trying him to do. And it is your responsibility to see tomorrow and not today, because tomorrow just might be better for all. Black men, white men, Jews, Gentiles, Hispanics, Protestants. Just might be better for all. Let the men complete what he has started. And if it fails, then you make the decision. But if it succeeds, what a city we will have. Don't let these people get in your ear, because they ain't got it all. And what I mean by all the facts, yes, you see it. Yes, you know it. You've seen it, you know it. But I guarantee you, those things that they're putting out there, I'm pretty sure if he had to do it all over again, he wouldn't. But ask yourself this question: which one of you have never made a mistake? He that is without sin, let him cast the first stone.
Thank you, Pastor Green. I'll ask again, is there anybody else that would like to approach the council under the public comment? Yes, can you fill out a thing, Ron? I know it sounds ridiculous, but we got to do it for the record.
Mayor, thanks for giving me an opportunity.
Yes, sir.
Ron Ramirez, 701 East 8th Street. Good to see everyone. I think the only thing I want to talk to you, council and mayor, about is you have to take everything that's been said tonight. You have to do your due diligence, and then you have to make a decision. It's not fair to anyone, to chief, or to the people that have a problem with the chief. to just sit back. We got to do something. So make your decision, do your due diligence. I'm glad the chief contacted Pastor Green. I'm glad there's a citizens, what is it, citizens? Okay, I'm glad there's one. I would really like to know more about it. I don't know, is there any Latinos on it? Pastor?
We are, as a matter of fact, solicited, a couple because.
Thank you.
We will not be a complete board.
I agree 100%. Thank you very much. So, council, take everything that you've heard tonight, do your diligence, because that's your job. And Mayor, do your diligence, that's your job, and make a decision so that we can move on as a city. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. All right. Is that it? Can you get Michael a form? Yes, ma'am. Did you miss something?
I did. I just wanted to address what I just heard about the racism.
We've got 3 minutes. We can't go back and forth.
Well, I
with it.
understand. I'm not going to take up much time, but I have a grandson and a granddaughter who are mixed. And I'll tell you that a few weeks ago, a police officer passed my house, and my 6-year-old grandson took off running. I said, "Baby, why are you running?" And he said, "Because the color of my skin, Nani, the police are mean to all of us right now." Okay. So that's racism.
All right. Thank you. All right. Moving on. We're going to close public comment at this time. We're moving on to city manager's report. Thank you for everybody that emailed us public comments and came to speak. Thank you for being with us through the social distancing. We're doing the best we can, keep everybody safe and make sure we get the word out. Of course, you're welcome to stay or you're welcome to leave at any time at your discretion. Thank you very much. And if Pam, if you want to kind of monitor the in and outs, if anybody outside wants to stay, there should be some room with the people leaving. Let them know that. All right, item number 1, under the city manager's report, update on the city of Elgin coronavirus pandemic response and/or impacts. Tom?
Thank you, Mayor. As council is aware, the city's been under kind of a modified threat level 4 COVID response plan for the last few months, and we have made the decision to basically extend that same plan for another 3 weeks to October 2nd. We've made a couple of changes, although basically the primary issues stayed the same. Michael, what happened? I lost my...
It almost seems like a connection problem, or...
Yeah, but that's not my screen. I can't. I'm just showing my. Well, I'll just try to talk through without the presentation, Michael. You can do on that. So basically, we are continuing with the threat level 4 with a few exceptions. I just wanted to mention to council. Obviously, we under our previous threat level 4, we had stated that all city council meetings would be virtual. But now we've made a little change and are going to kind of a case-by-case basis, and we're going to talk about that here on another item on my report. But so we've changed that to say in-person and/or virtual. But we are getting a little bit of feedback from Planning Commission and others. We're keeping them at virtual, but they're kind of anxious to get back to in-person meetings. So I guess what I'm saying is we've talked with folks from Smithville and Bastrop with the cities there, and I think you're going to see them, assuming statistically things basically stay the same, start to go back to full-time in-person meetings in October and at the latest November. As it relates to the library itself, one change we've made is that we have the building had been closed to the public, although we had a sidewalk deliveries program. So beginning on October 13th, the plan is to go to a modified or limited opening of the library where we'll allow some patrons in on the middle of the day. We'll keep the max at any one time to 25 patrons. And of course, social distancing and all protocols would have to be in place at all time. And we're going to try to open the facility up for that and see how that works. Similarly, starting September 21st, we're also going to, on a limited basis, begin to open up our computer room, workstations, and the study rooms, and make those available to folks by appointment only. So in both cases, those are examples of, we decided actually at the library and the rec center both, those are the two buildings I think we're seeing people be most anxious about us getting back open, so we want to try that with the library. Likewise, the recreation center is this now, Amy? Now it's fully open, including the fitness room, by appointment and reservation only. What we're doing is allowing folks to call ahead. You still can't walk in the rec center and use the facility, but if you call ahead and schedule a time, again, consistent with social distancing protocols, we'll let people use the fitness room and the facility as well. So those are both kind of small steps forward we're taking to getting back to where we were. And like I said, I think overall for council, the main thing is that I think if things continue along the same pattern they are, we'll begin to think about fully reopening in the next 30 days or so, I think, if we're all comfortable with that. So, but we continue to rely a lot on input from council or the public in this whole regard, where we continue to function really well and provide the basic services the citizens need through electronic means and other avenues. Our municipal court is also one that's getting ready to try to start a modified opening, not for jury trials or anything like that, but to begin to reopen. They haven't been open for quite a while. So we're gently moving that way. At the same time, this is always about, as it's been from the beginning, about public confidence, public safety. So we don't have a magic wand, and we welcome input and suggestions from council or people about where we're going to head on this. So with that, I don't really have anything else on that, Mayor, unless you have any questions or comments.
No questions? Okay.
Next item on my report was a discussion of the official City of Elgin holiday schedule for the coming fiscal year. As you may recall, last year was the first time that we went through the process of having council, as we should have been doing all along, formally adopt an ordinance that details the city holiday schedule for the year. Days will be closed and paid holidays for employees. But we'd actually done that on the calendar year last year. That was the first time we did that. So we're trying to get this as part of the routine process to be consistent with the fiscal year. Obviously, the holiday schedule has direct impact on the budget, so that's the appropriate time to set the schedule for for the coming year. And so obviously, we had some input recently that council received about potentially adding holidays. So we're in a position where we're ready to put this ordinance before council. Soon, maybe the next meeting, but I wanted to put on the agenda tonight to just have any casual conversation or input from council about whether or not we're going to change that holiday schedule or add to it. As you recall, last year, council actually approved adding 2 new holidays for the staff. So we would follow that schedule and prepare the ordinance accordingly, but I just want to see if there's any consensus about changing that schedule. The actual holidays, obviously, we'll give you the dates.
Council members have comments. You hearing me? I feel like, still here? Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Tom,
Yes, ma'am.
couple quick questions, just from follow-up from the last meeting we had where we did have Cheryl Reese attend, speaking on behalf of some holidays that she wanted the city to consider. Last time we talked about coming back around to council to discuss options for those holidays, particularly Juneteenth. I guess my first question is, would staff have an option to swap out one of their holidays for a holiday like Juneteenth? In addition to just the city considering that particular holiday, I know that we have the county that's also considering other pieces of information she sent. But I think that I also understand sort of the limitations of, assigning holidays can be difficult, picking and choosing can be difficult or challenging, but maybe if we provide an option to staff as to whether, out of some of the new ones, which one might they want to take advantage of. So maybe we could come back around and talk a little bit about what could those options be. Maybe by next meeting, you might want to maybe survey, get some thoughts from staff, maybe HR, to see what those possibilities are, to at least consider one of those on the behalf of staff and what they might prefer.
Sure, we can do that. I think you and I talked about this a little bit. It's basically, once the cow's out of the barn on that, I didn't want to start talking about that with the staff unless I just felt better. Again, given the fact that we added 2 new holidays last year, I just wanted to make sure we were generally in agreement about having that conversation before we even started that with the staff and making sure we're properly managing expectations. But one of the things that if you remember last year we did, wish I could have it on here, is we added Texas Independence Day and I think it was Columbus Day new, but we set those up similar to what you're talking about, where we're going to continue with skeleton crew those days, so we're not going to completely shut down operations. And in those cases, those employees that work that day will get a different holiday. So it'd be a variation of that. If talking about trying to find ways to, would they trade? And we did hear, if you remember too, one of the things we changed is we took Veterans Day off the holiday list, and we did hear from a couple people that employees that would rather we kept that. So I think if you're talking about a scenario where we gave them the option, that there might be a possibility there that. But we can certainly measure that from the staff standpoint. If that's agreeable to everybody, we'll see what they. I do think that concept of trying to find a way to keep a skeleton crew around so the operation can still be going doesn't mean we have to shut down the whole city, but we can give a holiday and trade those back and forth. I think that's kind of what you're talking about, right?
I think so. Just a quick follow-up, Mayor. In addition to that, too, also, I think it would be interesting for us to sort of understand what are those implications, because I realize, Juneteenth falls different times during the week. And so I realize that, if it fell on a Friday, that would be ideal. But in some cases, just depending on what the city has going on, as well as where obligations may be for certain staff members, maybe that's part of something that's also assessed to bring back to council to understand what are the implications if there is some sort of swap out, because I realize that's easier said than done.
Right.
So understanding maybe pros and cons with that, but again, just really understanding what are those options that might be feasible for staff to consider.
If you remember, one of the things we talked about last year, from a staff standpoint, obviously, the Friday or Monday holiday is a whole lot better than the Wednesday holiday. That makes it's a lot better for staff. You can get the long weekend instead of, you get one day off in the middle of the week. It never ends up being much of a holiday, but as you said, if it's Juneteenth or July 4th, that's obviously a specific date. So, so sure, we'd be glad to, we can take this on and staff talk about it and come back with a recommendation if the council's open to that.
I was thinking about that, some of the, when you start getting into, different holidays, like some people not caring about Texas Independence Day, or some people not caring about Columbus Day or whatever, we could seems like we could almost establish, hard holidays where the city's off, like Christmas and Fourth of July, whatever that is, and then have, soft holidays or, adjustable or whatever. I don't know how that affects management and different departments, and obviously I think a lot of that would have to do with, well, if 2 people took off for this day, but 5 people took off for this same department, how's a department going to operate, like that? So anyway, just something to think about. But so what am I hearing that staff would, or that council would like for staff to come with a recommendation, and then we can look at that to vote on next September meeting? Susan?
What about allowing an option of, like a floating holiday, a list of holidays that people could
Yeah, that's what I
observe
was-
something that's important to them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's sort of what I meant. Yeah, you're right, floating holidays. Is that
That
enough?
would, that would include Juneteenth.
Well, I suppose
I mean, the
it could.
recommendation.
I mean, I guess we could have the final say on which one belonged where and how. But I think we've given staff some direction now, I guess, at this point, where they could come back with a recommendation and we could adjust that.
Right, okay.
But if you've got something specifically you'd like to see how Juneteenth will reflect, now'd be a good time to say that.
Yes, I would like to see Juneteenth included.
Mayor, can I?
Yes.
Say, I think, I recall from her email that she actually asked for 3 possible days.
Right, that's-
One was
yeah.
Juneteenth, one was
Chinese New Year.
Chinese New Year, and the other one was
Cinco de Mayo.
Probably, or Cinco de Mayo or something.
Yeah, that, I believe that was all essentially for staff to, yeah, they had that information. So we were just, it just got introduced to the council last meeting without an agenda item. So I guess we've said our piece now on the record, so staff will come back with a recommendation.
Okay, I think I got it.
September 30th?
Good.
Or September 1st? Or the first meeting in September? No.
In October.
October, sorry.
Well, I want to talk about,
I'm in COVID calendar right now.
I want to talk about that a little bit here next, Mayor, if we
Okay.
can. So a couple other items I wanted to mention that with the COVID situation, I just wanted to share with council at the current time, we don't plan on having a National Night Out this year. Or every agency we're aware of has canceled it as well, so we're not planning on having that. Our Halloween events will be, we plan to modify those as well. We're obviously not suggesting, we're not going to suggest that we somehow try to restrict trick or treat, but we'll certainly be advising people on how to do that safely. Our Halloween parade that we typically have downtown, we will not have that this year in the same fashion as we have before. But Amy is continuing to work with downtown businesses to, once again, kind of come up with a modified version of that. And we hope to still do something. And again, this is another case where Halloween's obviously still a month away. Things could change. We'll continue to work on ways that we can keep those traditions going, but right now that's the plan as it relates to those events next month. The other thing I wanted to talk about tonight was our upcoming council meeting schedule. We obviously, this is another situation where COVID kind of messed up our plans. If you recall, the council, our city charter compels the council to adopt by ordinance a schedule of the regular meetings for the year in January, and we did that this year. And if you remember, officially, we're only required to have one regular meeting, so our official schedule reflects one meeting the first Tuesday of every month. But if you remember in January, which was before COVID, we knew anything about it, the council at that time had made the decision to move the October 6th meeting to October 13th because we had planned on having National Night Out. And then the November 3rd meeting was moved to November 10th for Election Day. And then, of course, now our own election got moved from the springtime, from May to November. So we're faced with a couple of challenges of how we're going to address that. And then on top of that, of course, is early voting starts October 13th that runs through the 30th. So based on trying to, if we need to, stick to we obviously have those dates set, October 13th and the 10th, and if we kind of stick to our every 2 weeks schedule, that would mean our meetings would be October 13th, October 27th, November 10th, November 24th. But on October 13th, and if we have the second meeting on October 27th, they'll be doing early voting in here. So we may need to go back to virtual for those meetings, which we think is probably the easiest, or we can obviously set up in a different location if we need to do that as well. So I guess I think that the October 13th and October 10th meeting are scheduled. I'm not sure we're going to have yet the October 27th meeting. But again, the main two issues, I guess, are figuring out, and we don't necessarily have to decide tonight. But I think for staff, frankly, the easiest thing would probably just to do those two meetings virtual. But we're obviously here to do whatever council wants to
vote to. It seemed like moving the October meeting back to the 6th would be maybe a little bit close, but it would be easiest. But we can't do that without ordinance at this point, right? Because we changed it with an ordinance.
It does say in the ordinance October 13th.
Yeah.
I mean, you could.
Are y'all okay with doing virtual as it's represented up there? And then getting back to first and third in December? I'm sure, and then I guess the October 27th and November 24th, we're not sure if we'll even need those meetings.
Correct. The 13th and the 10th, November 10th, are the ones that are officially scheduled. We'd obviously have some flexibility on the second meetings if we needed to have them or not.
Okay.
And I would just say that, again, what this means is in this schedule I have here would be in October and November, we'd be going to the second and fourth Tuesdays instead of the first and third, is what
basically
we
what it
usually
looks
do.
like.
The other part, I would just say that November 24th is the Tuesday of Thanksgiving week, so for whatever that's worth. And then, but circling back, December 1 would put us back on the first and third.
Amelia, is it 7 days to canvass? So November 10th would allow us to canvass the votes? So we would need that second meeting in November, right? If Election Day is the 3rd, then that the meeting on November 10th. Oh, is it only 3? Okay.
So that would,
So we're good on all
the
that.
10th will work for the, and
Okay.
of course, the 10th, we can be back in here too.
Yeah, okay. Oh. I didn't catch all that.
We'd have to have the official results by then, if you remember. I think
Yeah.
it took us a little longer for Travis County, right?
That should be enough. Yeah, that should be enough.
But we
Okay.
should hit that.
The overseas.
That'd be
take
a full
days.
week after Election
Yeah,
Day, so.
yeah. Okay. Council, we good with that schedule?
I think the main thing is, are we good planning on the 13th and
Second.
27th being virtual meetings?
We're good with going back to virtual for those just out of necessity, basically. Okay. Yeah, I don't. What would you, that's what we've been doing. Does that work better, 6 o'clock? Yeah. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Got that? All
Yep,
right.
that's good. And then if anybody had any questions for me, that's all my report, Mayor.
Okay, no general activity? Yeah, sorry. Okay.
Depends what you're going to ask me.
Yeah, no.
If we have more.
It was in front of me, so it's like a teleprompter. I'm going to read it. Okay, on to the consent agenda. I'm sorry, before we get off city manager, does anybody have questions? Okay, on to the consent agenda. We've got one item approving 3 meetings, the minutes of 3 meetings, August 18th, September 1st, September 8th. Did anybody review and have edits for or have issues with any of those? Okay, so if, I will entertain a motion to pass the city council virtual and in-person meeting minutes as presented.
So moved, Benson.
Second, Vega.
Got a motion by Councilmember Pinson and a second by Councilmember Vega. Any other questions? I'll call for a vote. Mary?
Vega, yes.
Jones, yes.
Dennis, yes.
Arriaga, yes.
Cannon, yes. That passes unanimously. Thank you, council. Item number 1 under new business, a resolution of the City of Elgin, Texas, awarding bids to Alpha Paving Industries, LLC, for construction of road improvements and a park trail in the amount of $55,410.82, and making certain findings related thereto, and making certain findings related thereto again. Thank you, staff. Yeah, background on that?
Thank you, Mayor. This item is for, as the heading said, a formal award of a paving contract. If you recall, this is the part of the Memorial Park Playground Improvements Project, where we got a grant from the St. David's Foundation that we're in the process of bidding out right now, that work to completely rebuild our playground equipment. And but included in that project that's shown on this map here, and the hash marked area is a paving project that we're doing at the same time to add to the overall project. Where basically the trail that we're paving, if you can see, it connects to the parking lot. It's essentially paving over the gravel road that's there now, and it'll go down to approximately where the restrooms are today, which, you know, that's the next step down there, that we'll be redoing our restrooms. And then this yellow line shows a connecting sidewalk between those two paths. And then we're also upgrading the parking area that'll be right there in front of the new playground. So this is just the paving portion of this project. As we said, we've got the grant from St. David's of just about $200,000 grant. And then the rest of this work will actually come out of our parkland fees. If you remember, the council, we changed parkland fees about a year and a half ago, and we now receive fees for all the new development going on that the city council can spend at its discretion. So this is a project that a $250,000 improvement to the parks that will have no direct impact on property taxpayers. It'll be paid for through the grant and through our parkland fees.
Okay. Questions, council?
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Manager, on the proposal, it says the trail paving, parking lot paving, angle parking, that the base is going to be prepared by others.
That'll be us.
That'll be the city.
Yes.
So is there a cost with that? I mean, we got to buy base, we got to spread it?
Yes, but that'll all come out of the parkland fees as well. We'll pay for ourselves. Just a way for us to spread the money around a little bit, do some of the work ourselves. But we're obviously, we're using the city engineer on that as well, so it's not, we're not just throwing down the gravel, so it'll be in conjunction with that. But yes, there's some work we'll be doing ourselves.
They're good. Other questions? All right, I'll entertain a motion to pass the resolution as presented.
So moved.
So moved.
Dennis.
Second.
A motion by Dennis and a second by Jones. Any other questions? Call for vote, Forrest.
Dennis, yes.
Yes.
Cannon, yes.
Vincent, yes.
Jones, yes.
That passes unanimously. Thank you, council. Item number 2, an ordinance amending Chapter 44, Article 2, Code of Ordinances, City of Elgin, Texas, by amending Division 1 residential requirements, non-residential and multifamily residential requirements, and irrigation, providing for a savings clause and repealing conflicting ordinances or resolutions. Tom?
Routine amendment to our residential code requirements. I'm going to have David speak to it. It's just some landscaping changes we're making in the requirements.
Good evening, everyone. David Harrell, Development Services Director. This item before you tonight is just a simple modification to the landscape ordinance itself. And what it does is it reduces some of our caliper and shrub size, gallon size requirements. Also allows for grasses to be planted and other low impact items to be placed in the backyards of properties like gravel, low impact development, saving water, xeriscaping, that sort of thing. And also allows for, or actually would remove portions of our irrigation code that covers above ground irrigation in our developments. And the reason why that removal is going is because it is a situation where we have certain builders that are above ground spraying their lots, and it's causing situations with plantings dying and sod not being properly watered enough to be in place. So we're removing that provision to mandate either above ground hoses on the planters and that sort of thing, or actual underground irrigation, which is done in most developments. And with that said, that concludes the summary of the items that are changing. I'm here for any questions you may have.
Questions, council? All right, then yes, ma'am.
Saying the irrigation, I had a question, was it gonna be a requirement to have either or?
You can have, under our current code, you can have underground irrigation, above ground drip irrigation, like in planters, that sort of thing, or above ground hoses. So it removes the above ground hoses, and it would still require either the drip irrigation like in planters, like for shrubs and that sort of thing, or underground irrigation. Most home builders do underground irrigation. It's been more beneficial to new growth that's going to be placed in place, allows accurate watering and that sort of thing. So those plants taken are less likely to die, so to speak, from improper watering.
Well, what my question is this gonna be a requirement that they have a irrigation system?
For new construction
Yes.
only?
Well, it'll be for any kind if they do new plantings, so to speak. Our code right now says if you do new plantings, you have to do an irrigation plan or above-ground irrigation or above-ground hoses. It removes the above-ground hosing requirement. So you either have to do underground irrigation, which is allowed by our code now, or you have to do above-ground drip irrigation, which is allowed by our code now. So it removes a requirement that's less stringent, in my profession.
So you can still run a hose and a sprinkler out?
Well, yes, you can, but to establish the plantings, you couldn't do that. You'd have to have some sort of irrigation put in place for it.
New plantings.
Correct.
Right? Yes, it's to get them, it's to make sure that you don't plant them and they die. So again, this change adds an option that's not there now.
Okay, so it gives us an option that we don't already have.
But that's still saying that they're gonna have to have an irrigation system.
They would have to have an irrigation system, so to speak, but it's their option if they want to do any kind of separate watering requirements from the actual irrigation system.
I think in this definition, irrigation system doesn't mean the $2,500 thing you have to build at your house.
That's what I was
Yeah,
asking.
system is
That's what I
defined
realized.
as a way to water the grass.
Okay, I'm good.
Is that fair?
That's what I heard.
Okay.
All right.
Yes, sir. For clarification, is this for new construction, or if I decide I want to put a new bed in my front yard down here on Main Street?
We've
I've gotta
applied,
put
we've
in-
applied these standards to new construction for the most part.
If I re-side my yard, would that'd be a replanting?
That would be normally these irrigation standards are for large-scale plantings. We're not going to go out and penalize somebody for putting in a shrub or two in their yard and make them do this. This has been geared more towards the new construction.
Okay. Does that make you feel any more
No, you're
clear?
not requiring somebody put in a sprinkler system.
Don't look at me, look at him.
And it,
Are you requiring somebody put in a sprinkler system?
no, not,
your
not,
residential-
not
okay,
an
okay.
existing home. Wait, that's not how we'll enforce
No,
it. That's
it's
not,
new
the-
construction.
this is for new construction.
The way I read this ordinance, there was a lot more involved with that as far as size of trees and, 3-gallon containers and all those sort of things that you have not mentioned in what you're presenting.
Well, it's a reduction in the caliper and the gallon, caliper for trees and the shrub requirements, of reduction in the gallon sizes as well. The reason why I'm doing that is because plants have better survivability in regards to if you reduce the size of the plantings that are going in. So if they have better survivability, they're less likely to die, which is less likely to become an issue with the future owner and us as well, because we have to enforce these items.
Okay. So it's a reduction, it's not an increase. Okay.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
These type requirements are, as David said, it's really associated with a major development where, cities have problems, a new developer comes in, puts in the cheapest stuff, doesn't water it, it all dies, and he leaves. And then he or she, I guess I should say. So it's more about establishing the right system from the start. Did the Plan Commission review this?
There was no requirement for the Plan Commission to review
I
it.
understand. But we're not, there's no real time pressure on us for this, right?
Correct.
If the council would prefer, we could circle back and have the Plan Commission review it and make a recommendation. Right? I mean, there's no
Yes, we
downside
could
for
do
us
that.
if you'd feel better about that.
So,
We think it's a routine change, but if you'd like more eyes to look on it, there's no.
So do we need a motion to put this on the table, or?
I would say make a motion to approve the ordinance or make a motion to refer to the planning and zoning for further review.
For a recommendation, we'll bring it
So
back.
For recommendation.
I'd make that motion. I would like further planning and zoning to review this before we make our final decision.
Yes, got it.
Is that motion clear, Amelia? Yes, sir. Got a motion by Councilmember Dennis, second by Councilmember Pinson. Does anybody have any
Oh, I'm sorry.
questions?
Jessica did it.
Oh, did you? I'm sorry, did I get that wrong?
Seconded.
Sorry. Okay.
You just hear me louder than her.
A second by Councilmember Vega. I apologize. Does anybody have any questions on what we're doing? We're not. We're going to refer this to planning and zoning for a recommendation. Clear? All right. So I got a motion by Councilmember Dennis and a second by Councilmember Vega, and I'll call for a vote for us.
Dennis, yes?
Yeah, yes.
Cannon, yes.
Benson, yes.
Jones, yes.
All right, that passes unanimous. Thank you, council. Item number 3, an ordinance to update the comprehensive schedule of fees and charges necessary to generate funding for general and specific operations required to satisfy service needs of the city, to amend ordinance 2019-09-24-15 and subsequent amendments to that ordinance, establish new categories of fees and charges, revise existing rates, reconfirm existing rates, provide for a savings clause, repeal conflicting ordinances or resolutions, and provide that this ordinance shall become effective as stated herein. Tom?
Thank you, Mayor. If council recalls, last year, I think last year is actually the first year where we lined up our all city fee schedules to be reviewed and approved as part of the budget every year. If you remember, before that, we had all different kinds of fees approved by different ordinances, so we did the effort to put together a comprehensive fee schedule of all fees charged by the city, and we're now adopting that as part of the budget adoption process. So this ordinance, although the budget was approved and predicated on this fee structure, this is a separate ordinance to specifically and formally approve that fee schedule. And I think Charles has got just a couple more comments.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. This is a consolidation of all, as the city manager said, a consolidation of all the fees that are charged by the city for various activities that we provide. In this particular, we started this last year. For this one, for this year, there's 3 areas that have been adjusted somewhat, and I'll just quickly go over those. One of them, if you'll recall, on April 7th, you approved a new peddler, solicitors, and vendors ordinance, and we kind of expanded the application process, and there's 5 different fees related to that. So those are woven into this particular fee schedule under D3. Which didn't appear before, so this is just following that ordinance that was adopted in April. The next one is on the solid waste collection fees for the commercial accounts. If you'll recall, under our waste management contract, they're authorized to approve the additional fees for wastewater or waste collection for the commercial, and those are all reflected. It was 2.85% increase in residential and 2.91% increase in the commercial, and those are reflected in this new fee structure. And those are under Q1 through Q4. And lastly, there were a couple of changes to the planning and zoning and the permitting fees for developments. Those are all in V3, starting in V3 with the plats. Mostly it was to simplify some of those charges because we had been charging postage and filing fees on that, and those have been consolidated into the base fee, so it makes it a little bit simpler for the developers when they're paying for those fees. It also expanded or created separate fees for work done in the historic zone, downtown district. Those fees are a little bit lower than what the ones are for new developments elsewhere. And those are the basic changes, but by passing this ordinance, we have one document that everybody can work off of, and we can put it on the website, and so there's no confusion about what the city charges for all of our rates and fees.
Yes, sir.
Charles, you said there was a little bit of difference between the historic district and the other residents. And I'm looking at the cost for a new subdivision construction payment. Outside of the downtown district is 5,000, inside is 100.
David?
I mean, there's quite a bit of difference. I wonder
Well,
why are we charging different fees for people inside the city limits?
Would that be platted and pre-platted, maybe?
Page 13, by the way.
Under V4?
Under V4.1.1.
Juan, I think your mic's off. There we go.
I didn't bring schedule.
We're researching that right now. Is there any other questions or anything you had in regards to the fees, sir?
Well, I mean, you know, all of it, like for instance, V.5.1 is 5,000 outside of historic. Inside is 1,000 for the same thing. And I'm just wondering why we're charging different fees for the same thing.
The reason why is because the historic district, we wanted to, it's a situation, that area is developed. We wanted to lower those fees in regards to them to assist them as far as looking at developing in that area and that sort of thing, to encourage more of that by kind of lowering those fees and putting them, or reducing the cost of those fees.
I can see that, but we probably want to encourage that all over the city. And I'm not sure that it'll stand up to legal scrutiny, but even if it does, I don't think it's right to have different fees for the same group of people inside the city limits.
We've done some inconsistencies that, I don't want to call them inconsistencies, but we've addressed that before, where there are certain different building codes in the historic district overlay versus other places, other commercial areas in the city. So some of it has been different, but there's always typically a reason. In this case, I could understand.
That's quite a bit of difference
Why you
there.
want an explanation for that.
Yeah,
And this is for the guess I don't know what the fee, what you would be getting feed on.
Mayor, can I suggest, well, let's do the same thing and just step back on this one. We'll bring it back the next meeting
Okay.
when we can fully answer
There's no
Councilman Gonzalez's question.
Sure.
There's
Is that
quite
okay
a,
with you, Juan?
yeah, there's difference in the signage, also in the signage fees. I mean, I understand a little bit of break for people in the historic district, but that's quite a bit, from 5,000, somebody outside the historic, to 100 in the historic.
That's right.
So we really have to review those. Personally, I don't think there ought to be a difference.
Are there any other questions before we move on?
Yeah, Mayor, it was shortly after, I think, we approved all of these fees that we got a letter from Barry Barker about the irrigation fee. And he talked about how exorbitant they were compared to other municipalities. And so have we taken a look at that letter to see if, method to justify that? Or, I mean, I know that, Melissa sent him, but are they
researched
indeed
that
too
issue?
high compared to other municipalities?
Well, if you remember, in the development services end, we actually for years, many years, taxpayers have supported that effort. The fees have not paid for the processing fees. We did make a significant increase in fees a year ago to make sure that development pays for itself. That's really our objective, is to make sure that that the new development we have coming in, all those impact staff for engineering review, for processing those requests, that the fees should be in such a way that it absorbs all that cost. Taxpayers, and it's not dependent on the general fund. So, but we went through that process. I think this new schedule actually reflects some of those changes. We have looked at it again, and I think we've made a couple of changes where the fees are actually going down based on some feedback we get. But suggestion that all those fees are way overpriced, that in that letter, that's
Sure.
not accurate.
Right,
And so,
right. But it might be interesting that with the new structure, that we look at it and see if there is a difference.
And again,
maybe
if-
we could, provide feedback to him, who has said he's not going to do any more irrigation projects in Elgin, and explain to
Well,
us, you know, I mean,
if we want to talk about that issue, we could sure
Yeah,
talk about
yeah,
that
but-
situation and his complaint. It's a
Sure.
whole different story behind
Right.
that situation. And we rarely have people doing projects say our fees are really cheap whenever we charge them fees.
Right.
So it's not typical that builders or developers will say that. So
Okay.
I guess it's kind of two different issues. If we want to revisit, I remember him sending the letter. I can't recall exactly what it says now, but if we want to revisit his specific complaint, we can do that. But I think it sounds like we just need to do some more work addressing this issue and justifying what fees we're recommending, and we can do that. So I don't know that the ordinance necessarily needs to be tabled, Mayor. We can just.
No, we don't need to table it. I just want to
We'll
make
just
sure.
pull it, we'll bring it back.
I want to
next-
make sure everybody's
next
got
time.
questions before, so while staff is making notes. Anybody else? Okay, staff clear on what some of the questions were? Okay. All right, we don't need to table it, we'll just not take action. And,
Well, wait a minute,
Go ahead.
Charles, I'm sorry, Mayor, there's no time constraint on this, right?
Well, October 1st, but
Right,
we can make it a retroactive.
yep, well, we can figure it out.
you said, so I need to revisit by October 1st?
Just, I assume we'll come back and kind of make it retroactive with the budget, but it's not, we can wait till the council adopts it before we charge any
I was
new
going to say,
fees.
if we table it, then it has to come back next meeting. I don't think we need to, we'll just take no action at this time for further review. All right, moves us on to announcements. Any announcements? No?
So I just
Yes,
want to
ma'am.
make another comment. Last couple of weeks, Tom and staff, we've toured various areas in the Ward 1, specifically look at some items that needed special attention, just kind of over time, looking to improve certain areas. And I just want to commend again staff for doing a bang-up job last week, really looking at some of our main corridors, East Alamo as well as the MLK area. Those areas, of course, have high traffic now that school has started, and so they did a really good job just on some very basic items that make a big difference. The sidewalks there were almost in a situation where you really couldn't walk on them because they were in a state of just grass and weeds, and a combination of cooperation from property owners as well as our staff willing to step in to really help set an example. So thank you again to Tom and staff for working at those levels to really improve really just the appearance of that area, and to again make the sidewalks true walkways again for those that need to get to and from. So thank you again.
Yeah, thank you. And I want to take an opportunity to thank Mr. Michael Gonzalez back there, who is drastically working very hard to make sure all this this audio stuff gets done with minimal difficulty, technical difficulties. So thank you, Michael. I know it's really important to you that this goes smooth. So anyway, we do appreciate the work and spending these late nights up here, getting ready and tearing down. So thank you. All right. Well then, going to recess the regular meeting at 8:43, and we'll come back for executive session in 5 minutes.